the question that is a real tease, where is the stimulus money going? Well, the White House says almost 600,000 jobs were created by the stimulus in the last 3 months of 2009. Where do those numbers come from? Join us live is Ed O'Keefe, federal government reporter for the Washington Post. Nice to see you, Ed.
Thanks for having me.
What's the story on the jobs? How many jobs has the stimulus program bill created?
The administration reported Saturday night that about 599,108 jobs were created between October and the end of December. That's down from the 640,000 and change that were created between the beginning of 2009 and the end of September. But the White House says don't compare those numbers because the way that they were measuring jobs before September is different than the way they were doing it in the fall. They're looking now for recipients of stimulus money to only report exactly how many jobs were paid for with the money they received versus the old measurement which was to estimate how many jobs may have been created or saved with the money they were receiving.
Okay. In other words, estimate's sort of, I guess, a more professional word than guess.
It was a subjective measurement, and the White House and the administration seemed to admit that when they changed the policy quietly, we should add, in mid-December. And now this is a new measurement that most good government groups, the GAO, the folks that are running the Recovery.gov stimulus tracking website say is a much easier way to measure jobs.
Easier or more accurate?
Both, actually, is what they would say. Easier for the recipients and more accurate for folks that want to go and audit these spending reports to try to figure out how many jobs have been created.
Okay, well, that's great. Now we're going to have more exact numbers, but before we got to the more exact numbers, did they have, did they think, was it all peculiar with the idea of sort of guessing what it was? And they were pawning that off on us? Was that at all of concern?
I would say in their most private moments, people would probably admit that this was a bit of a confusing and really sort of headache-inducing job measurement, yes.
Confusing, that's even, I mean, it's like, I guess that's even nicer than...
Which is why they went about changing it. They realized that recipients who were trying to turn in their spending reports every quarter couldn't figure it out. It was way too confusing and was taking too much time. And all the good government groups here in Washington, the guy that's running the thing, Earl Devaney, who runs the recovery board here in Washington, said it's a way too subjective measurement. We need a more solid way of doing it. And so that's why now they say, look, moving forward, anyone that submits these reports is just going to say how many jobs they paid for with federal money from the stimulus, and they feel that's a much more easy way to do it.
What is your level of confidence? Maybe this isn't a fair question to you. What is your level of confidence of the 600,000 jobs and almost 600,000 jobs in the last quarter those are truly new jobs and not sort of making payroll on other jobs or maybe increase wages?
Well, that's the difficulty, and that's where it would behoove reporters to go and sort of try to look through these reports. It would, be important that the federal agencies themselves start to ask those tough questions and try to figure that out. It's very difficult at this point, and there's thousands of these reports to go through. But basically, they believe that this is a more reputable way to measure those jobs, and that, in the end, that will be a better baseline, and that it will be easier for auditors if they feel the need or if they see a reason to really go in and measure those jobs.
Well, I guess, it seems more reputable if before you were sort of guessing. But it still doesn't, I'm still not convinced that we truly are keeping track of jobs that are created. They may have a better measurement, but in terms of, accuracy, do we have any sort of idea of the accuracy?
There is no baseline, if that's what you're looking for.
So we've gone from sort of guesstimating to sort of hoping we have a better measurement, but not being able to go to the bank on that measurement.
And officials would say use the last quarter of 2009 now as a baseline to measure future progress in March, in June, and other parts of this year, to say if we were able to create roughly 600,000 in the last 3 months of 2009, use that as the base going forward. If you're creating fewer than that, the question will be, well, why is that? If you're creating more, it might be, well, why is that as well?
Except for you look at the measurement, the way of investigating into measurement, which may not be particularly good at this point.
Sure.
Anyway, all right, Ed, thank you. I'm sure you'll be chasing this down some more. Thank you, Ed.